Hey, we're Film Don't Lie. Brent Rollins and Dayne Young back after some summer hiatus. But if we're here, that means Georgia football is coming very, very soon. Brent and I are going to discuss today 5 things that we want to see from the Georgia Bulldogs in the 2024 season. Quickly want to mention we're going to have a new sponsor this year on Film Don't Lie. Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce. You can check out their product. You can check out some of that product behind Brent's head.
Yes.
Do I want to make you full screen over here?
I don't know. That's a bad idea. But anyway,
there's a
all
bottle
sorts of different types.
What's your favorite so far? You're a traditional guy, right?
I'm an OG, Oconee Gold original. So like that's my favorite. I haven't. My nephew, he dives into the spicy ones, but I haven't really gotten there yet. I just like the original. It's as good as it gets. Put it on a little bit of everything.
Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce, Breda Pest Management, ASW Distillery, Connor Grading and Landscaping. That's our people, man. You're going to be hearing about them all year on Film Don't Lie. And they've been sponsors of this for a long time, so we appreciate them. Talk about them a little bit more at the end of the show. All right, Brent. SEC Media Days have come and gone. We know Georgia's roster. We know Georgia's schedule. We're going to blink, and Georgia will be staring at Clemson on a field in Atlanta. Meaningful football happening without divisions in the SEC, with expanded college football playoff. But Georgia has the Heisman favorite at quarterback and is the favorite to go win the national championship. And yet, our job is to say, here's some things we want to see from Georgia this year that we think that will help them. So as you and I discuss this on text, let's just bring the audience into this conversation. How did we approach what we're about to tell everyone and show everyone with a few clips that really go back to, 2018, 2019 in some
2019, cases. 2021, even some of the spring game stuff, but definitely a couple from 2019, which folks are going to – I know a few weeks back I actually asked on Twitter, what if I thought Georgia should bring back some of the concepts that James Cole used as offensive coordinator in 2019. That obviously got an instant visceral reaction from the majority of the fan base, given the overarching how the offense performed that season. But there were some things within what they did and player specific that I think need brought back, and you're going to see more personnel-wise that. But also just when you think about the season ahead, it's a gauntlet. The schedule is a gauntlet. You've seen people come out and publicly say, like I think it was Greg McElroy, like, hey, I'm taking the under. If 10.5 is the number, I'm taking the under on victories as a 10-2 type season for Georgia. But because of the schedule, at Texas, at Bama, at Ole Miss, some others mixed in there, Clemson to open the season. But when the schedule is like that, you're going to have to possibly be different teams in different games. And you can't just play one style all the time. You got to have you got to be able to go left from a basketball term. And I think the offense is built from a personnel standpoint to add some things and go left. And the defense too, the talent is there. You just got to, I think, deploy it in a certain way. And I think that's what we're going to bring up.
All right, there's something from the Coley OC era. You've already kind of teased it. I'm going to let you cook here.
So this is a concept that we hadn't really seen Georgia use, and we haven't really seen Georgia use since. So if you look at that's, by the way, comparison to 2024, you have a left tackle who happens to wear number 71. He's not necessarily Andrew Thomas level yet, but maybe trending sort of that way in a way after years of redshirt freshman starter. But you're going to see Kinley, and then I think it's Hill at center, right guard, and then right tackle, Isaiah Wilson. Like, they're all going to work right. And they're zoning to the right. And the back is, in this case, DeAndre Swift. And the reason I brought this one up specifically is this concept it's called a bash concept, back away from the action that the offensive line is working. And you just see instantly that defenders react to not being blocked. By the way, if you think about Ohio State against Georgia in the Peach Bowl, and then Tennessee a couple times last year, use concepts like this where they're running maybe counter action to the right and the back is coming left. But the key for me with this is, one, you have the offensive line, athleticism in the offensive line. Two, I think with ETN in the fold now, you have a back who, I think Kirby even said it in the spring, that is very DeAndre Swift-like. And then three, you've just got to get back to running game diversity. If you look at the last 2 seasons, So in 2022, Georgia was almost 50-50 in terms of gap and zone schemes running the football, 47% gap, 53 zone. Last season, I think both personnel, I think it's just as much a personnel thing as it is a play caller thing. They were 2/3 zone, 1/3 gap scheme. So not as much of a true split and not as much diversity in the running game. And when you don't have a QB that is a running threat, and we know that like Carson Beck is the best returning quarterback in college football, but he's not a running threat.
Right. So like he would not be something to take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Whereas, maybe someone like a Stetson Bennett could have.
Yes. And it's just things like this and then things like the next play, and which, by the way, James Cook scored a touchdown in this same game on that same exact action. Brian Harrion had a couple big runs later in the year on it. Like they mixed it in throughout the season and had some really big plays with Swift as well, too.
We're talking about the run game here.
Go back to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, back to I was remembering which play we had next because in my head you said James Cook and I was going there. Let's go back to the Orange Bowl here, and this is the pistol set.
Yes, and this is one where, again, when your quarterback is not a running threat, how do you dictate things with the defense, or how do you not give indicators to a defense? You put the back directly behind him, because now that guy can go either way. And when you look at this touchdown and the sort of get downhill and cut run, mode that you have with Milton here, and the ability to see the guy off the edge, make a cut, the action, the flow, especially with somebody like Roderick Robinson, I think you're going to see, it's just, again, it's a way to add diversity to the running game, a way to, I think, play action. Because if you look back at, say, Alabama in 2020 with Mac Jones, they were devastating off play action and devastating even in the run game too with Harris, with the two tight end sets like Georgia runs, much because of the pistol formation and the inability for defenses to key on things versus when the back is, say, on one side versus the other. And it's one that this was only the fourth rushing attempt all year out of the pistol for that. So that's 2 for me. So just overall, get back to the run game diversity. I think the third clip even kind of points to that as well. But get back to the running game diversity. Here you have 2 backs in the game.
Yeah, so this goes back to Georgia Clemson 2021. And with you talking about that schedule, one of the things I want to see from Georgia this year is efficiency and dominance when it comes to those drives that you just have to kill the clock, manage the game, because the easiest way in a college football where more teams can score more points than ever, there are really good skill players all around the SEC and Georgia schedule. How do you keep them off the scoreboard? Keep them on the sideline. And Georgia did this really well in 2 national championship runs where when you needed to ice games, you could get a 6-minute drive. When you really needed to kill a game, you can make that an 8 or 9-minute drive. Some clock rules even help with that now, where it's even more effective. But this is something I don't think Georgia had to do a whole lot last year because it had such big leads against that schedule. And so just want to make sure Georgia can do it. Zamir White was really, really good at this. When you would take a carry up the middle, maybe you bounce off a guy, you could have been tackled for a 2-yard gain, you turn it into a 4-yard gain. And then it keeps you positive momentum, getting closer to that first down marker. And that's what I was going to discuss was how did Zamir White do that? What can Georgia running backs do in that situation, whether it's Etienne or Roger Robinson or Branson Robinson, to help kind of have these drives that are going to seal games for you? What I had forgotten when I went back and watched the last couple of possessions against Clemson in this game is, again, the variety that you're discussing, how James Cook was used to keep the defense off balance. Because look how close these defensive linemen are together, understanding this is a 2nd and 6. Georgia's keeping the ball on the ground here. And then Georgia comes out with James Cook. Here's the sweep, little stutter step, and he gets it to where now you have 3rd and 1.
Yep. And the next play was Zamir White getting the first down, running over a couple defenders.
I've forgotten James Cook's threat with this, quickly reminded of it. But if you remember, this also turned into Brock Bowers doing a lot of this in years after.
Yep. And you have to be able to finish the game and be powerful running the football. I mean, Kirby talks about it all the time with how much just stopping the run is his focus within the SEC. I think you're going to have some games here, especially because of the road aspect of this, where you might have a lead with 10 minutes to go in the 4th quarter, and you need to be able to run the football. You need to be able to lean on an offensive line that is basically one of the most experienced groups returning in all of football.
Yeah.
And, with the depth that they have along the offensive line and finishing these games, especially the short yardage piece, because you think back to the SEC championship game, multiple, at least two that I can right off the top of my head think of, but others where short yardage was an issue. Again, when your quarterback's not a running threat, you have to be diverse, and then you have to be able to still finish it with the run game. And that is very offensive line and tight ends, along the line of scrimmage blocking.
As a point of comparison, I should just mention this because this was one difference between 2021 Georgia and the 2023 Georgia. James Cook is one of the 5-7 worst 10 best running backs in the NFL. Zamir White showed glimpses of being a top 15 running back in the NFL last year. It probably needs a little bit more of extended time playing and being productive.
Oh, he's going to get it this year with the Raiders.
Right, but you saw the flashes there of okay.
Which I think that might actually be Kendall. I think Zamir maybe came.
Oh, you're right. That one is Kendall.
Zamir power back came in the next play.
Yeah, Zamir
and had ran like 2 or 3 earlier in that drive too.
Yeah, Zamir had started this drive. You're right. That is Kendall there. But regardless, even from a personnel standpoint, Kendall Milton and Dejan Edwards were not the combination that Georgia had at running back in 21. And so what does Georgia have with ETN, who I think most people would say is Georgia's most talented running back? But then also, can one of these freshmen emerge? Is there a guy that can have a Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, kind of impact?
Frazier, Phillips, like any of the freshmen, Roderick Robinson, because by the way, he's looked good in the offseason little clip videos that he's posted. Look very good. But anyway, so that's point one, running game diversity. 2 is this is something we saw and I thought of it. I didn't know that I maybe had heard whispers of it, but then we saw it in the spring game, and that's having Micah Morris at right tackle. Because as with the defensive side, as with really any part of football, can you get your best 11 on the field? And Xavier Truss at right tackle has been a very solid player for a couple years. Solid. Micah Morris has shown that he can be really good. Second highest run block grade. If he can hang in pass pro as a 6'6", 330-pound right tackle, I think that allows them to, with Wilson at center, Fairchild Ratledge at guard, and then Ernest Green at left tackle, I think that allows you to get your best 5 on the field.
And I think the discussion goes to, yes, this is about Micah Morris and his versatility. Micah Morris is one of Georgia's best offensive linemen. So the question then becomes, if all the things are equal, would you rather have Truss on the field or Fairchild on the field? I think Fairchild was really good last year. Yep. And I think Truss had flashes too, and you're going to need him this season because he can play multiple positions.
Need versatility. Over his career, especially over the past 2 years, he's been better as a run blocker at guard, but better as a pass blocker at tackle, but still was, in terms of grade and pressures allowed, things like that, was on the lower end, I think bottom of all of the offensive linemen a year ago at UGA. So this is one for me more personally, because I just think when if you end up with a rotation of, and say you play Monroe Freeling, if he deserves to play and has earned the right to play, and you're rotating 3 tackles, okay, fine. And then you're also rotating 3 guards, fine. It's great for depth. It's a great problem to have, but I think him at right tackle will get your best 5 on the field.
All right, so quick recap here. Let's have run game diversity. Let's have Michael Morris get some right tackle reps, maybe even potentially start and play the crucial situations.
If he can. And to me, if he couldn't, he wouldn't be there in the spring game.
Yeah.
They would have already said, nah, we're not doing that. Let's get the other guy reps.
On crucial drives, can you kill the clock and use that run game diversity to do so?
Yep.
That's kind of where we're at right now.
Next up, new guy.
Yeah. So this is a red zone threat that I was thinking of because I don't think Georgia has had a receiver threat down here. Brock Bowers was this at tight end, but he would do it from a different position. But when Colby Young got onto campus, and you saw some of this in the spring game as well, it reminded me of the last Miami transfer, Lawrence Cager, who did some of this, which is how can I use my body down here in the red zone in one-on-one situations, block out like a basketball player, and then how big can that catch radius be when you're just a bigger person than whoever is defending you? And this was something that early in the Kirby Smart era with Jake Fromm at quarterback, you really, really saw with guys like J.J. Holloman as well.
Javon Wims.
Yeah.
Like and I remember when we did the podcast with Jake Fromm and we asked him about 2019 and he kind of his first point, his first frame of reference as well. After Lawrence Cager got hurt, things changed a little bit, and he was that important for that offense in 2019. And you think about his season that year, he was 12 of 14 that year, 86% in contested catches. That's insane. That was one of the best in college football. Colby Young, over his time at Miami, 19 of 30, 63%. So he is, in terms of body type and the ability to go get the football in that situation, that's what he is. And he brings a great threat to Georgia's offense in that manner. And that's just another weapon for your best returning quarterback in college football.
And this particular catch is interesting because you think of the big, tall receiver, and you always think high point, can they out-jump the other person? I think it's so much more body leverage of how much space can I occupy and then keep the defender away from that, because that really opens up where the quarterback can throw it. And typically, they're going to go back shoulder anyway.
Yeah, and you think about like Pickens as a contested catch guy, even Randy Moss. There's sometimes it's leaping, but it's also just the ability to turn the body and contort the body in ways where you can adjust to the football that the defense can't. And you see it, you go get it. And
we both trust that Carson Beck will be very accurate on these passes.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons that he's hyped up as he is. He had a great season last year. All right, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball.
There's a lot of things defensively, but I think first and foremost is something that has been very much talked about before the bowl game, after the bowl game, in the spring, and will likely be talked about as interviews happen when fall camp starts. It's Mykel Williams lining up as a true edge. And like I tweeted this out after the bowl game. So pre-Orange Bowl, his percentage of his snaps is like a true edge defender, by the way, which he's an alignment perspective, just how he aligns outside eye of the tackle or further. Or in this case, like this one, he's kind of stand-up edge guy. Before the bowl game, 47%. In the bowl game, against Florida State, 73%. So almost 3/4 of his snaps truly as an edge player. And how did he respond? The highest graded game of his career, 6 total pressures, and then the play we're about to show here in a minute. But him as a true edge guy, you've already seen talk of people having him number 1 on their big board and the kind of the draft hype for good reason, because of the size speed dynamics that he brings. But if you do that with him this year and allow him to kind of play free and get after the passer, I think you're going to see the production kind of lift up much that meets the talent, I guess you could say.
Playing free. This is before Kirby, so it's a bit of a non-equivalent here. Do you remember when Jarvis Jones was allowed to play free, kind of line up almost where he wanted to, and he became a first-round pick out of it because he was such a disruptor quarterbacks hated going against Jarvis Jones that season. And he was a liability in coverage as well. Totally different than Mykel Williams in the sense of what their futures are, what their total skill set is. Just the general freedom of like, we trust you're going to do the right thing here. I don't know that a Kirby Smart defense ever gives a player that completely of what Jarvis Jones had, but that's what reminded me. I was reminded of that when you're just talking about the freedom there. The thing that on this play, what did we all talk about after the Orange Bowl? And I mentioned this on Paul's and Andy and Eddie's show earlier. Jalen Walker, his performance in this game is something that I think a lot of people were discussing and getting really excited about for good reason. I think a lot of that, though, is because of Mykel Williams. And yeah, we see the plays here, but if I pause this right here, there's no chance that Mykel Williams should make a meaningful impact with blocker here, a little help here. Here comes ball carrier, right? Like that should be dead in the water. That's disruptive.
Yeah.
That is disruptive in making the running back take multiple steps that the running back wasn't planning to make, and then you get help coming there. That happened a lot in this game, and one reason Jalen Walker was able to get as free as he did.
Yep, and I think that goes to the next play. And for me this year, as much as it is Mykel Williams lining up as a true edge, it's getting 2 of him, Jalen Walker, Damon Wilson, Gabe Harris, and Pimba. I mean, we saw Chaz kind of elevate as a pass rusher even in the spring. Like he looked like a whole different player in the spring game from a pass rush perspective. But you haven't seen as much of that in game. But we definitively have seen it from Wilson and Walker. Like if you could get 1 of 2 of those three players, Damon Wilson, Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, 2 of those 3 on the field on early downs. And it's one of those things where it goes against kind of everything that Kirby Smart's defense is. And like you talked about the freedom part, it's the ultimate team defense. It's the ultimate, everyone has a role and a specific job, and based on alignment and formation and opponent, things like that, that you don't necessarily have that because, hey, we don't want to let quarterbacks run free. We want to keep them in the pocket. Pass rush eventually gets there versus just go win. And I think they have guys now that can just go win and cause quick pressure. And getting 2 of those 3 on the field consistently on early downs, I just want to see it. And I think it's something where this year, unlike last year, with the 12-team playoff, experimentation with things like that, you're a little more able to do that versus, hey, we're going to play how we play and we have to win every game, knowing that you, in essence, kind of have 1 or 2 potentially mulligans based upon where you're going to be. Obviously, you're not going to coach to lose games, but you're going to at least, hey, I'm going to go in this series and experiment a little bit with that kind of role and these kind of players doing different things. And I think you can see that this year. And I think that from a defensive perspective will be very interesting to watch how Georgia, because even, Kirby talked about it at the SEC Media Days about KJ Bolden being kind of even ahead of where Malachi Starks was as a freshman. Like, how do you incorporate him early? How do you incorporate Ellis Robinson? How do you incorporate some of these sort of uber talented guys that eventually are going to need to be playmakers for you? How do you incorporate them throughout the season? You have more time to do that, I think, and you have more ability to do that.
As it relates to Mykel, I want to bring this. You're a PFF guy, and you understand how that data is assessed before, like I've ever understood that. I've learned a lot from you, and it's a very meaningful tool. When I think it was 3 years ago, we did the top returning players according to PFF for Georgia, and it was very surprising to our audience that Malik Herring was the highest graded returnee for that particular season. Do you see any potential equivalencies to the impact that Malik Herring had? Understanding Mykel Williams is a much higher rated prospect. He is a much more talented player in terms of NFL projection. He's more disruptive. But in terms of just, you didn't see a whole lot of bad reps that season. And so can Mykel clean some of that up and have that disruption and freedom to help with it? Do you see anything there with Malik Herring?
I think the bowl game tells you everything you need to know. When you see that from him in the bowl game, like it was the 91.9 overall grade. I think it was the first game in his career above an 80 grade. You just see the impact plays. And I think he is a next level potential finisher. Herring was great at winning initially, but didn't necessarily finish. I think he can bring the winning and then also finishing. And I actually think it's a very important season for Mykel Williams because of Trayvon Walker. Because those comps are already out there and Trayvon went first, and he's been solid in the NFL. He hasn't developed as a pass rusher as maybe you would have thought. And it's one of those things where, okay, there was a clear, better, productive player that was taken right behind him and has been way more productive in the NFL. But it was, hey, Trayvon had the athletic tools and was asked to do things in Georgia's system. I think if you get to where Mykel can show that, hey, he has the pass rush moves and then production, that you get rid of that, I think, stigma in a way that people might look at him and be like, he's just another Trayvon. And that's not necessarily, it's been good in the NFL. It's just not been really good.
And there's going to be some young guys here that emerge for Georgia that we're not talking about yet. This happens every single season with the defensive front. And I'm curious who that's going to be. I think you can kind of see where that's coming at inside linebacker. Mm-hmm. Do one of the defensive linemen, do one of the nose tackles come in there and take some of those reps. Like, that's possible with Jarrett is in better shape than he's ever been.
And the other point with can you get 2 of Jalen Walker, Damon Wilson, and Mykel on the field at the same time, is there's not as much disruptive presence on the interior.
Yeah.
And you need a Jarrett. You need a Xavier McLeod. You need someone in that Jordan Hall that's in that non-Brinson Stackhouse player. you need somebody else to step up and elevate and be disruptive on the interior, because if you have it, we haven't seen it, basically.
Let me soapbox on this for just a second as my final point here about Georgia's interior defensive line. Absolutely, it's not as good as it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's not. How could it be? This is more normal of what Georgia has now.
Yes.
This is what is the part of this that was outside the statistical mean was when you have a Jalen Carter and a Jordan Davis and a Devontae Wyatt
and Trayvon and like all these guys on the same defensive line. Yes.
We knew it was insane then. When you kind of come back to earth a little bit years after, with Georgia still really good at those positions, you realize how they had the monsters out there. Yes. I mean, they were playing a whole different football game. That if you could have that every single year, it makes the game so much easier on all levels. And look, Clemson had a version of this, maybe not quite as great at nose tackle, but that 4 group that they had at the defensive line during its run, you haven't seen them able to replicate that either.
No. And to steal from Paul and Eddie and Andy's show a little bit, kind of where the Braves are right now. Like they had the 2021 UGA defense on offense last year, and now they're kind of normal like other teams. And it's like you get past the 5th hitter, and you're like,
Yeah, it happens quick, man. In sports, it's unpredictable in that way. Quickly, I want to just look. This is July, and most Film Don't Lies, we're not going to go on and on about our sponsors. We do love them, but we love Georgia ball, and they allow us to talk a lot of Georgia football and hang out with everyone. So I want to quickly just give a rundown of who is going to be supporting us throughout this season. There may be some like discussions happening here, but even if anything's not set in stone, they've been our supporters before. We have great relationships with these folks. So if this is a free plug, cool. Love these people anyway, even if it doesn't continue. But I expect all this to continue. But most of it is locked down. I just want to give them some love. This is like the haven of sponsors for dudes that just want to watch ball and keep their house protected, essentially. That's what Braided Pest Management does. Keeps all the bad stuff out of your house. They protect the Georgia Bulldogs. Check them out, braidedpest.com. Connor Grading and Landscaping. If you got work to do in your yard, which you tell me all the time, you need to call up Mike Connor, get him back out there to undo some of the stuff that you try to do yourself.
It still do.
Okay, that's still the case. Your high school age kids have not fixed it for you.
No.
Okay.
No, they're terrible. They're useless.
Connor Grading and Landscaping, they've been so loyal to us. They're going to be on Film Don't Lie this year. They've been on Around the League multiple years beforehand. And we said, look, Film Don't Lie, good spot for y'all to come hang out with us. So if you're in the Northeast Georgia area and need some work done on your yard or just want to see what they can do for you, that's connorgrading.com. ASW Distillery, you got your bourbon, got your Hunker vodka, which benefits Georgia with NIL stuff. So check them out. It's ASW Distillery. And our newest one, Oconee Gold. Let me pop their logo back up here as well.
Yep.
And here's some of the product they have a little close. I'm excited about I like the dry rubs, especially when I'm pork. I want dry rubs on that. The wing sauce I got really excited about. You came and brought me a little goodie bag that I'm going to get in here, get on the grill, try some of these things. You said the jalapeno was a little bit too spicy for you.
Like I said, I'm pretty plain Jane when it comes to that stuff. So I'm like the OG. If
you have a choice, you said you go to the OG, just something a little bit more mainstream. I'm all about the spicy and the jalapeno, and let's check it out. And that is not because, man, I grew up in a family that ate very bland, but I went to New Orleans once and it changed my life. And I'm like, I want those flavors. And so I get more of that now. New Orleans not known for barbecue as much, but Oconee Gold is manufactured in Northeast Georgia. Check them out, Oconee Gold BBQ Sauce.com. I'm excited for them to be a part of this.
Yep, it's good.
We need to get a family cookout going here. All right, so we're going to be doing some Film Don't Lie stuff here over the next month leading up to Georgia and Clemson. I think we're going to try to be on essentially every Sunday night leading up to the season. We'll see. We haven't discussed that.
Yep.
But we're going to be on more, and then once the season kicks in, here we go.
And I think this year, we had talked about this earlier in the offseason, but this year more than any, the previews are going to be like we're going to have to look at Clemson. We're going to have to look at Texas and Alabama. And we did that a little bit last year and in the years past with Tennessee, Missouri, when the big games came up. But
I want to do one
than,
for Auburn. After
like,
Hugh Freeze was saying that he was tired of not being as involved in his offense in his first year at Auburn, I'm like, all right, let's go see what Hugh Freeze's offense was about. Does Peyton Thorne make that? Because Auburn was tough for Georgia last year. People forget it because Auburn sputtered down the stretch, but that was not an easy game. It wasn't.
Hair of the chinny chin chin.
It wasn't. I don't know if it was that in South Carolina. Both had the kind of wary parts in there. But Peyton Thorne all of a sudden became a runner, which we didn't see much of the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I want to get to the comment section on YouTube and Facebook real fast before we wrap here, just because this is a bit of an abbreviated episode as we get back into this. Let's see. William says he's excited about linebackers being faster. Lose Dumas Johnson, but he was a little slow moving. He had some injury stuff too.
Speed will not be a problem at linebacker.
No, and
another year for those guys. Like how much Raylan Wilson, C.J. Allen, how much those guys got to play a year ago makes them infinitely better this season.
From Marshmont, lamentably, love that word. If it's a word, I think it is. That's exactly how Alabama ran out the clock on Georgia last year. Exactly. You're going to win games if you can run down the clock and ice a team and have it where they have what feels like forever of staring at the clock, running down to zero, and they can't do anything about it. And Georgia's offensive line positions the Bulldogs to be able to do this better than any team in the country, both in terms of talent and depth. But which running back is that? Because I thought Zamir White grew into that very well. Don't know. Kendall Milton had flashes of it.
Mm-hmm. When he's healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy Kendall Milton. Second half of last year was definitely that.
So who's that for Georgia this year? I think Branson Robinson, like we saw some of this in postseason play before last year. We've seen Branson Robinson. He didn't necessarily have to ice things because of school board, but productive in fourth quarter. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Kathy's happy to see
Appreciate
Film Don't Lie back. Thanks, Kathy. William also says, sacrifice the Braves for a dog's natty. Look, I think at this point, even if you're the biggest Braves fan in the world, that's just probably the safe bet to make, just the way baseball's looking. Finally, Kenny, over on Facebook, do you think Georgia's defense is going to be better this year? Tough question for me to answer. I think it has a really good chance to be. I need to see some secondary stuff, though, because you just lost a lot of reps back there.
My instant thought is how quickly does the secondary grow up? If so, then yes, because I think your front seven will be better, and deeper. But
if Ellis is a dude out of the first beat,
and KJ Bolden, like those guys, those guys are big time players and ready to play from the get go. And I think you're going to see a leap forward from Dalen Everett this year. This is kind of traditionally how that's worked. Year two after starting year one. Yeah. In that spot, there's a leap. Humphrey's going to make plays. Like I think that it's the talent is there. And if Bolden is anything what Malachi was as a freshman, you're going to have potentially, again, one of the better safety tandems in college football.
And then you instantly forget about the Caleb Downs saga of the spring of 2024. Because if he was on this team, I would instantly say yes.
It was an interesting one, that's for sure.
That was a fun
yes,
time.
I would. If that was the case, then I would. I think the instant response would be yes, because it doesn't get any better than those two at safety.
When you would have had him and Bolden as right behind that. Georgia doesn't. It's fine. I think there's a good chance Georgia at some point this year sees Caleb Downs on the field. Because to me, the best two teams going, if Ohio State has good quarterback play at all, they're the second best team in the country going into the season.
I would agree with that.
And Texas and Alabama are going to be.
And by the way, have you looked at Ohio State's schedule?
Rough.
That would be a no.
You're saying easy.
I think they have to play 2 games.
Yeah, and one of them is against a Michigan team that's nowhere near as good.
Correct.
Other team to watch out for: Oregon. Oregon's got some stuff cooking over there.
That's, I think, Ohio State's other game. I think they go to Oregon maybe at some point.
But one loss still gets you in the playoff
wrong.
In this era. If you're a team with a name like Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State. Man, now I'm all excited for these previews because we're going to have Bama, we're going to have Texas, we're going to have Ole Miss. Tennessee's probably going to deserve
Clemson.
one.
We're going to do one for Clemson because you can't just look over. I mean, they still got talent. They got talent in the right places to, like, defensive line. They got some defensive line talent, some secondary talent that I know personally. So
I can go ahead and tell you, Klubnik, when we watch that tape, You're going to see some plays on there. You're like, man, he has potential to be the best quarterback in the country. And then the very next play, you're like, oh boy,
No,
he could be benched. Like it is all or nothing with that dude.
All right, so Kenny's going with Georgia versus Oregon. I've actually been kind of tossing that around because that was my pick last year.
Yeah.
Like last year, I thought it would be, and I was very close to that if Lanning had been a little less aggressive. But, we'll see. That's a very interesting pick.
I would say going into the season, the pretty safe top 5 includes Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama as most talented.
I think Ole Miss is right there too, especially with their schedule. They're going to be so confident.
Yeah,
as the season goes on.
With a team that just hasn't played together like that, how do they start? Mid-season? Yeah. That if there's a team that can benefit from a playoff scenario more than any other this year, it's an Ole Miss. Because if they don't discover their identity for 10 weeks, they still got a shot to make the playoff.
Yeah.
That's what I think. We're going to wrap it up here. Film Don't Lie, 5 things Georgia needs to do in 2024. Run game identity. Mykel Williams, let him loose. Run the clock down. What else am I missing here?
We got contested catch monster, Colby Young.
And then get all your studs at edge on the field.
Your 5 best linemen on the field.
There you go.
And I think that includes Micah Morris at right tackle.
You realize that high school football is coming very, 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 very soon.
Yes.
We're going to be unabashed. We're rooting for the North Oconee Titans on this show.
I will be back at games.
I will be at those same games. You'll be there in a parent capacity. I'll be there in a program leading college students in broadcast capacity. So
it'll be fun.
A lot of good times here over in Bogart, Georgia.
Football's here. Like it's here. Like especially with the media days, like that really is like, all right, it's and what is it? 10 days. Georgia starts practice, 11 days.
It's first of the month.
And then
they're off and rolling. And then this will be our 5th season doing Film Don't Lie content together. 6th season, man. I'm getting old. All right, let's wrap this up.
6th
season. Here we go. 2 national titles during that. It's pretty good.
I mean, that's a pretty good
ratio.
Pretty good performance thus far.
Better ratio than they've ever had before.
Many could say the same, though.
Fair enough. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.